Welcome to our Research Like a Pro question and answer series. Today we are talking about state or county locality guide, which is best. So many times we have multiple places that we probably need to plan to do locality research, and what should we do about our guides? So we'll just spend a few minutes here looking at some ideas and examples. So I thought I would show you a couple of guides that I have done. This is the Morgan County Locality Guide, and this was actually for Morgan County, Missouri. So I can see right away I'm actually working on another Morgan County guide right now for Illinois, so I need to put the state in there. But my county locality guides typically have things like probate, deeds, court, marriage, and tax records, those things on the very local level, as well as county histories, specific county maps. And if you have a state guide, one of the tips is that you can actually have a link to that within your county guide so that you don't forget about it. So I do have a pretty robust Missouri locality guide. So I put a link to it right here so I would not forget that I have this great resource. And one of the other things that I've done with my state guides is copy and paste some things from a state guide into my county guide if it is a record type or something that I think will be particularly helpful for the project I'm working on. So something else you might see here that's kind of fun that I do sometimes in my guides if I remember or have time is a little icon key, and I do these on Google Docs, and you can just add an icon. It's up in part of the tool section. And so I have created a little key here that if it's a green book, it's a book in my collection, because that's the other thing I forget about sometimes is that I have books that are pertinent to an area, a book at the Family History Library, a digitized book, or a digitized record collection. So that might be something fun you might want to incorporate into your guides so you remember what you have and what kind of records you've got. So here's just an example of some of the things that are very specific to Morgan County, Missouri. You can see I've got some vital records, some births, some marriages, some deaths, and land records. Now, I will note that I did not fill out this guide completely because my research project was very focused. And so I didn't worry about things like 20th century records because I was pretty solidly in the 1840s and 1850s for this project. So you can certainly make a note of that at your guide, what area, what time frame you are actually focusing on. So here are a couple of things that are very helpful. And these are some things that I copied and pasted from my state guide into my county guide. I have Milton Rafferty's fabulous historical atlas of Missouri. So there you can see it's a book in my collection, so don't forget about it. And then some other basic maps that I just easily brought over so that I had them right there. That was, very easy for me to look at and use. Now let's take a look at this Missouri locality guide on the state level, and I'll give you some ideas about what you could put in a state locality guide. Well, I like to have a comprehensive timeline for the state because that will also apply to all the different counties, or most of the counties. Some of our states do have a north and a south part, and Missouri is one of those where they're quite different. But good things to put there are migration routes. The laws are great to put into a state guide. Some of those state repositories, libraries and archives, publications, newspapers, because newspapers, you might want to branch out from just a newspaper near your county and go more statewide, because those bigger newspapers are always looking for items of interest, regardless of if it's in, the specific county or city that they are talking about. And you might want to also think about putting some information on those territorial state censuses. If it's a state land state, how to get those kind of records. And then a lot of the vital records are on the state level. So there's really a case to be had for doing a basic state guide as well as a more specific county guide. And so you can see here that I have put the date I updated it so that I know if I've touched this guide lately or if there's a lot of things that I need to go look at to add to it. One of the things that I do when I'm taking a course, like an institute course, is to build a guide as I'm going through that course. And I did that with this Missouri guide because I was taking a course, a week-long course all on Missouri. And it was such a great place to get my notes and to put, all the different record collections and things I was learning about during that institute into my guide. So that's another tip. If you are taking some type of a class or a course on a locality, do a guide as you're doing the course, and that will help you to corral all that information. Now, there might be a time where you need to do a specialty locality guide, and this could be for a regional area. Perhaps you want to do one for all of New England or the Southwest United States or a specific region in Europe. And that can be helpful if the records are similar, if you have got methodologies you want to put into your guide, or if you have some regional repositories. There are regional repositories in the United States, and I'm sure in other countries as well, that are located in places different than the records that they hold. And so you'll want to try to track down some of those. So a regional repository or a regional locality guide could list those. It may be that you also want to do something like a church locality guide if you're just trying to learn about where all the records are, say, for the Catholic Church. It might be tricky to get those nailed down and to learn about those records. And you might also want to do one for a territory. So this was Indian Territory, and it only existed for, I think, about 70 years, and it became Oklahoma, but it's very, very specific history records and such. So I did a complete guide for that. But we have other territories in the United States, like Mississippi Territory that became, some of those southeastern states. And you might want to do a guide so that you can really track down territorial records, especially if your project's going to take you into those areas. So some tips on locality guides. If you really have a lot of counties in a state that you're going to be researching, it would probably be well worth your time to build that state guide, especially if you have a project where you're going to be looking at all the counties surrounding your basic county. And that will just give you something to really focus in on the state records, and then you can do the smaller guides for the counties. If you only have one county in the state, say you discover one little county and you're not going to research as far as you know in that state anymore, then there are other opportunities to learn about state records. You could use links to online state guides like the Family Search Wiki or the Family History Guide, or even the National Genealogical Society state guides. You could purchase those for your state. So you could use those if you really don't want to work on a state guide. And then, as I showed you, copy and paste relevant sections into your county guide. And you can link between guides of different jurisdictions. Maybe you have links in your state guide to all the different county guides. So you can really help yourself out by linking between the two. And then again, I always say this, but it's just a good reminder that when you're building your guide, consider your objective. When are you going to be researching, and what kind of records are you trying to find? So that can help you to narrow down the focus of your locality guide and not have it be an overwhelming process to try to get every single thing for that locality. And of course, they're fluid and we add to them as we go. So I hope some of those tips will help you as you're trying to decide how to figure out which locality you want to actually do your guide for. Thank you.